February 11th, 1945, 4:17 p.m. Somewhere in a field hospital outside Nancy, France, a military intelligence officer sits across from Staff Sergeant Thomas Harker and asks the same question for the third time. Walk me through it again. Every detail, from the moment you entered that barn. Harker's right hand is bandaged, 3 fingers broken. His left shoulder is immobilized. The doctors pulled 17 pieces of wood splinter from his back. His uniform, what's left of it, is in an evidence bag somewhere. Too much blood to salvage. Most of it not his. From the beginning, the intelligence officer says, his name is Captain Weiss. He has a notebook, a pencil, orders from division to document exactly what happened in that barn outside Dieuze. Harker stares at the wall, says nothing. 25 German soldiers, Weiss continues. 25 confirmed dead, all in approximately 1 minute, according to the survivors. You were alone. They had you disarmed and surrounded. Still, nothing. The Germans we've interrogated, Weiss says slowly, are telling us you were talking to them, having a conversation, while you killed them. Harker's eyes shift to the captain. That's what they said? That's what they said. Harker nods once. Then it's probably true. The barn outside Dieuze is 40 feet long, 20 feet wide. Stone foundation with wooden walls and a hayloft. On the afternoon of February 8th, 1945, it contains 32 German soldiers from various units, stragglers, deserters, men separated from their commands during the Allied advance through Lorraine. Also in that barn, Staff Sergeant Thomas Harker, 2nd Battalion, 157th Infantry Regiment, 45th Infantry Division, age 29, from Bozeman, Montana, fluent in German. The fluency is what matters. The fluency is why he's still alive. 3 days earlier, Harker's platoon had been clearing the outskirts of Dieuze, house-to-house fighting. Germans on one side of the street, Americans on the other. Sometimes you cleared a house and found nothing. Sometimes you found enemy soldiers waiting. Sometimes you found enemy soldiers who didn't want to fight anymore. The 157th Infantry had been in combat since Sicily in 1943, North Africa before that. They'd seen Anzio, Salerno, the long grind up the Italian peninsula. By February 1945, the regiment has been fighting for 26 consecutive months. The men are exhausted. The replacements are green. Everyone wants the war to end. Harker is neither exhausted nor green. He's something else. Careful, methodical, the kind of soldier who survives not through heroics, but through attention to detail. He checks every corner twice. Never walks down the middle of a street. Never assumes a room is clear until he's physically looked behind every piece of furniture. This approach has kept him alive through 2 years of combat. It fails him on February 8th. The platoon is pulling back from Dieuze. The town isn't fully secured yet. German resistance is collapsing, but not collapsed. Pockets of enemy soldiers are still fighting, still trying to organize counterattacks, still dangerous. Harker is walking rear guard, last man in the column, making sure nobody's following them. The snow is knee-deep, temperatures hovering around 20 degrees Fahrenheit, every breath visible, every step loud. The barn appears on the right side of the road, old, weathered, probably empty, probably. Harker approaches carefully. M1, Garand rifle ready. He signals his lieutenant that he's checking it. The lieutenant nods. The platoon keeps moving. They need to reach the rally point before dark. Harker pushes the barn door open, steps inside, lets his eyes adjust to the dim interior. Sees hay, farming equipment, empty horse stalls, no Germans. Then he hears the bolt of a rifle being pulled back. 32 rifles, all pointed at him from the hayloft and the stalls and the shadows in the corners. 32 Germans who've been hiding here for hours, maybe days. Waiting for the Americans to pass so they can slip away at night, Harker stops moving, freezes completely. His rifle is pointed at the floor. 32 rifles are pointed at his chest. A German soldier drops from the hayloft, lands in front of Harker. Sturmbannführer rank insignia. SS. Not Wehrmacht. This complicates things. The Sturmbannführer is young, maybe 25. He looks like he hasn't slept in a week. His uniform is filthy. His face is gaunt, but his eyes are sharp, alert, dangerous. He says something in German. Harker doesn't move. The Sturmbannführer says it again. Louder. Drop the rifle. Harker understands every word, but he doesn't drop the rifle. Not yet. Thomas Harker learned German from his grandmother. She immigrated to Montana in 1903, spoke German at home, refused to learn English properly. By the time Harker was 7 years old, he was translating for her at the general store. His grandmother's name was Hilda. She came from a village near Heidelberg, brought with her a leather trunk containing photographs, a Bible printed in Gothic script, and opinions about everything. She lived with the family in a small house on the edge of Bozeman, shared a room with Thomas and his younger brother. At night she would tell them stories in German, fairy tales, folk legends, stories about the old country, stories about relatives they would never meet. Thomas absorbed the language without trying, the way children do. By the time he started school, he was functionally bilingual. His teachers didn't know what to make of him, a farm boy who could recite Goethe. His grandmother died in 1936, heart failure. She was 73. At her funeral, the pastor spoke in English. Thomas thought she would have hated that, would have wanted German hymns, German prayers. But by 1936, speaking German publicly in Montana was complicated. The Great War was still remembered. German immigrants kept their heads down, spoke English in town, saved German for home. When he enlisted in 1942, the Army gave him a language proficiency test, discovered he was fluent in German, tried to transfer him to intelligence. Harker refused. He wanted to be infantry. He wanted to fight. The Army let him stay with the infantry, but marked his file. Fluent in German, useful for interrogations, document translation, questioning prisoners. Harker has questioned hundreds of German prisoners since Sicily. He knows how they think, knows what they're afraid of, knows how to get information without threats or violence. Just questions, patience, letting them talk. Most German prisoners want to talk. They're exhausted. They're scared. They're relieved to be out of the fighting. They'll tell you anything, if you're patient, which units are nearby, what their orders were, how many men they started with, how many are left. Harker has a reputation in the regiment, the sergeant who can make Germans talk, who comes back from interrogations with useful intelligence, troop movements, artillery positions, minefields, the kind of information that saves American lives. He's good at it because he doesn't threaten, doesn't intimidate, just talks to them like they're human beings, asks about their families, where they're from, how long they've been fighting. The Germans respond to this. They're tired of being screamed at by their own officers, tired of the SS watching them for signs of defeatism. An American sergeant who speaks their language and treats them like people. They talk. In the barn outside Dieus, he makes a decision. He starts talking. Wie viele von euch sind hier? How many of you are here? The Sturmbannführer blinks. Not expecting this. Not expecting the American to speak German. Not expecting a conversation. Was? What? Wie viele? Harker repeats. Still hasn't dropped his rifle. Still standing perfectly still. Just asking questions. The Sturmbannführer looks confused, then angry. Screams at Harker to drop the weapon. Harker doesn't drop it. Just keeps talking. Calm. Conversational. Like they're meeting at a train station. Sie der Heeresgruppe G? Oder Heeresgruppe Oberrhein? Are you Army Group G? Or Army Group Upper Rhine? This question is tactical. Harker is trying to figure out what unit these soldiers belong to, whether they're organized, whether they're expecting reinforcements, whether they're going to kill him immediately or try to take him prisoner. But the question also does something else. It confuses the Germans. This American shouldn't know German military structure, shouldn't know the names of army groups, shouldn't be asking questions while surrounded by 32 rifles. The Sturmbannführer doesn't answer, just screams again. Drop the weapon. Final warning. Harker finally complies. He lowers his M1 Garand, sets it on the ground, raises his hands. Standard surrender procedure. The Sturmbannführer relaxes slightly, waves 2 soldiers forward. They grab Harker, pat him down, find his sidearm, a Colt 1911 pistol, standard issue for NCOs. They take it, find his combat knife, take that too. They find his grenades, 2 fragmentation grenades clipped to his webbing. They take those. They find his first aid kit. They take that too. They're thorough, professional. These are experienced soldiers, not the green replacements Germany is throwing into the line now. These are veterans, men who've been fighting for years, men who know what they're doing. Harker is disarmed, surrounded. 32 armed Germans, 1 unarmed American. The mathematics are impossible, but mathematics have never been Harker's concern. People are his concern, and people can be talked to. The Sturmbannführer asks the obvious question, Wie viele Amerikaner sind draußen? How many Americans are outside? Harker answers honestly, Keiner mehr. None anymore. Sie sind weitergezogen. They moved on. This is the truth. Harker's platoon kept walking. They think he's checking an empty barn. They'll realize he's missing in maybe 10 minutes. By then it'll be dark. They'll assume he got separated. They'll assume he's dead or captured. They'll keep moving. The Sturmbannführer processes this information. 32 Germans, 1 American prisoner, no immediate threat. They could execute him, should execute him. SS protocol is clear. Don't take prisoners unless there's intelligence value. But the Sturmbannführer hesitates. This American speaks German, might know something useful. Allied positions, troop strengths, plans for the advance. Hinsetzen, he orders. Sit down. Harker sits on the floor, hands still raised. The Germans lower their rifles slightly, still aimed at him, still ready to fire, but not actively threatening. The Sturmbannführer squats in front of Harker, pulls out a map, points to their location, asks about American positions. Harker looks at the map, looks at the Sturmbannführer, asks a question instead of answering. Warum seid ihr noch hier? Why are you still here? Der Krieg ist vorbei für euch. The war is over for you. This is not what the Sturmbannführer wants to hear. His face hardens. He stands up, draws his Luger pistol, points it at Harker's head. Ich stell die Fragen. I ask the questions. Harker doesn't flinch, just keeps talking. Ihr konntet euch ärgern. Kriegsgefangene werden nach Genf behandelt. You could surrender. Prisoners of war are treated according to Geneva. The Sturmbannführer's hand is shaking. The Luger wavers. He's exhausted, starving. The German army in the west is collapsing. Everyone knows it. But surrender means camps, interrogation, shame. Halt, die, Fresse. Shut up. Harker doesn't shut up. Habt ihr Verwundete? Ich kann einen Arzt holen. Do you have wounded? I can get a doctor. This question changes something. 3 of the German soldiers exchange glances. One of them says something to the Sturmbannführer in a low voice. Harker catches fragments. Someone is wounded. Badly. Needs medical attention. The Sturmbannführer lowers the Luger slightly, asks Harker if he's lying about the doctor. Harker shakes his head. Kein Trick. Nur eine Tatsache. No trick. Just a fact. Ihr werdet hier sterben, wenn ihr nicht rauskommt. You're going to die here if you don't get out. More Germans are listening now. The ones in the back. The ones who look even younger than the Sturmbannführer. 18. 19. Boys in uniforms, 3 sizes too big. Harker has seen thousands of German soldiers since Sicily. Has watched the quality decline month by month. In 1943 they were professionals. Veterans of the Eastern Front. Russia. Men who knew how to fight. By 1944, the replacements were older men. 40. 50. Factory workers and clerks pulled from reserved occupations. By 1945, the replacements are children. 15-year-olds with rifles they can barely lift. And grandfathers with iron crosses from the last war. The German army is eating itself, consuming its future, to Yenshu, feed its present. These boys in the barn are what's left. One of them asks Harker a question. Wie lange dauert der Krieg noch? How much longer will the war last? The Sturmbannführer spins around, screams at the soldier to be quiet. The soldier shrinks back, but the question hangs in the air. Harker answers it anyway. Wochen, vielleicht Monate, aber nicht Jahre. Weeks, maybe months, but not years. This is February 1945. The Red Army is closing on Berlin from the east. The Americans and British are crossing the Rhine. Everyone can read a map. Everyone knows what's coming. The Sturmbannführer turns back to Harker. The Luger is raised again. Ich sollte dich jetzt erschießen. I should shoot you now. Harker meets his eyes. Warum hast du es nicht schon getan? Why haven't you already? The question sits there, unanswered. In the intelligence officer's tent, Captain Weiss stops writing. This is where it happened? Harker shakes his head. Not yet. Then what? He started asking me about Montana. The conversation in the barn shifts. The Sturmbannführer puts the Luger away, sits down across from Harker, asks where he learned German. Harker tells him, Montana. Grandmother. Farm outside Bozeman. The Sturmbannführer nods. Says he has family in Bavaria. Farm outside Munich. Says his father grows wheat. Says he hasn't seen his family since 1941. 4 years. 4 years of war. 4 years of watching friends die. 4 years of retreating. First from Russia, then from France, now from Germany itself. The Sturmbannführer's name is Otto Brecht. He tells Harker this voluntarily, against every rule of military conduct. Never give the enemy your name. But Otto is tired. So tired. And this American speaks German like a human being, not like an enemy, like someone who might understand. Otto joined the SS in 1940. He was 21. Idealistic. Believed in the cause. Believed Germany was building something new. Something better. He fought in Poland. In France. In Yugoslavia. In Russia. Saw things that changed him. Did things that changed him. Watched the cause become something else. Something darker. By 1943, he stopped believing. But you don't leave the SS. You fight until you die. Or until the war ends. Whichever comes first. This is no longer an interrogation. This is 2 soldiers talking about home. Other Germans gather around. They're listening. Some of them sit down. They're exhausted. They're starving. They're beaten. They want this conversation to continue because as long as they're talking, they're not dying. Harker asks about the wounded man. Otto admits there are actually 3 wounded. Shrapnel, infected, fever. They've been in this barn for 4 days. No food. Snow melted for water. The wounded are getting worse. One of them won't last another day. The other 2 maybe have a week. Maybe. Harker tells them what they already know. They need to surrender. Walk to the American lines. Get medical attention. Survive. Otto says it's not that simple. He's SS. He's heard the stories. Malmedy. Dachau. What the Americans do to SS prisoners. Harker doesn't deny those stories. Can't deny them. They're true. Some American units execute SS on sight. Payback for atrocities. for massacres, for concentration camps. But not all units, not all the time. Just says they're not universal. Says most American units follow the rules. Says the 45th Infantry Division doesn't execute prisoners. This is mostly true. The 45th has its own reputation. The Thunderbirds. They've fought from Sicily to Germany. They've seen things, done things. They liberated Dachau, saw the gas chambers, the ovens, the piles of corpses. Some of them snapped, killed guards, killed SS. But the division as a whole follows the rules. Harker can promise that. Probably. One of the younger Germans asks if that's true. Harker says it's true. Says he's personally escorted dozens of prisoners to the rear. All of them still alive, still breathing, still heading to POW camps instead of graves. Otto isn't convinced. He stands up, paces, comes back. The barn is cold. The light coming through gaps in the walls is fading. It'll be dark soon. Otto asks Harker why he's telling them this. What does he gain from convincing them to surrender? Harker gives an honest answer. Weil ich hier raus will. Because I want to get out of here. Lebend, alive. Otto laughs. Short, bitter, wir auch. Us too. This is the moment. The decision point. Otto is considering surrender. The Germans are exhausted enough to accept it. If Harker stays calm, keeps talking, lets them convince themselves. Harker asks Otto about his family, about the farm outside Munich. Otto talks. His father is 63, too old for military service. His mother is 58. His younger sister is 17, still in school, or was. Before the bombing started, the farm produces wheat, barley, some vegetables, enough to feed the family and sell the surplus. It's not much, but it's home. Otto hasn't seen it since Christmas 1940. 5 years. The last time he saw his sister, she was 12 years old, playing in the snow, making a snowman. He wonders if she remembers him, wonders if his parents think he's dead. The mail stopped months ago. No way to send letters, no way to receive them. For all his family knows, he died in Russia, or France, or anywhere. Harker tells him about Montana, about Bozeman, about mountains that stretch forever, about winters that make this snow look mild, about his grandmother who refused to speak English, who told him stories in German, who made him promise to remember where his family came from. Otto asks if the grandmother is still alive. Harker says she died in 1936, says he still thinks in German sometimes, still dreams in German. Language is strange like that, gets into your bones, becomes part of you. They talk for another 10 minutes, 15. The light fades further. The barn grows darker, colder. The wounded Germans groan occasionally, in pain, in fever. They need medical attention soon or they'll die. Harker reminds Otto of this, says time is running out, says the decision needs to be made. Otto knows. He's been a soldier long enough to understand tactical situations. They can't stay here, can't move the wounded without help, can't fight their way out. The only option is surrender. But something goes wrong. One of the Germans in the back sees movement outside, shouts a warning. Someone's approaching the barn. Otto pulls his Luger, shouts orders. The Germans scramble for their rifles. They think it's an American patrol. They think they're about to be attacked. Harker stands up, raises his hands, says it's probably just his platoon coming back to look for him. Says, don't shoot. Says, let's talk about this. Otto grabs him, uses him as a shield, drags him toward the door. Luger pressed against his head. Harker can feel the cold metal against his temple, can feel Otto's hand shaking. Adrenaline, fear. The conversation is over. They reach the door. Otto kicks it open, looks outside, sees nothing. No Americans, no patrol. Just wind moving through the trees. Just snow, just darkness. False alarm. Maybe an animal. Maybe paranoia. Maybe shadows playing tricks. Otto shoves Harker away. But he's angry now. The moment is gone. The possibility of peaceful surrender has evaporated. He's back to being a soldier, back to following training, back to doing what needs to be done. Auf den Boden, on the ground. Harker gets on the ground, face down, hands behind his head. Standard execution position. He knows what's coming, has seen it before. In Sicily, in Italy, in France, prisoners executed, bodies left in ditches. War is full of moments like this, where decisions are made in seconds, where lives end because someone is tired or scared or angry. Otto stands over him, says something to the other Germans. Harker catches fragments. Can't let him go. Can't keep him. Too dangerous. He knows too much. Saw their faces, heard their names, could identify them later. Better to end it now. Clean. Quick. One bullet. Harker keeps talking. Still calm. Still conversational. Even with his face in the dirt and a Luger pointed at his skull. Ihr müsst das nicht tun. You don't have to do this. Es ist unnötig. It's unnecessary. Otto tells him to shut up. Final warning. Harker doesn't shut up, just keeps going, talking about surrender, medical care, survival. His voice steady. No begging, no pleading, just facts, just options, just possibilities. One of the younger Germans says something. Harker doesn't catch it. Otto screams at him to be quiet. The boy shrinks back. Harker turns his head slightly, enough to see the room. 32 Germans, all watching, all waiting to see what happens. Some of them don't want this. Harker can see it in their faces. They're uncomfortable. This isn't combat. This is execution. This is murder. There's a difference. Even in war, there's a difference. He keeps talking. Denk an deine Familie. Think about your family. Denk an München. Think about Munich. Du kannst nach Hause gehen, wenn das hier vorbei ist. You can go home when this is over. Otto's face twists. Anger, frustration, exhaustion. Aber wenn ich dich töte, kann ich nach Hause gehen? But if I kill you, I can go home? Nein, Harker says. Das bringt dich nicht nach Hause. Das macht dich nur zu einem Mörder. No, that doesn't get you home. That just makes you a murderer. The word hangs there. Murder. Murderer. Otto's hand is shaking again. The Luger wavers. Harker shifts. Just slightly. Moving his weight. Getting his feet under him. Still talking. Still asking questions. Wie heißt du? What's your name? Otto doesn't answer immediately. The question throws him. Why does the American want to know his name? Why does it matter? Ich bin Thomas. I'm Thomas. Wie heißt du? Otto. Otto. Hör mir zu. Otto, listen to me. Ich will nicht sterben. Du willst nicht töten. Wir können das lösen. I don't want to die. You don't want to kill. We can solve this. Otto's face twists. He's thought about this moment. Thought about killing. Thought about what it means. He's killed before. In combat. In battle. That's different. That's war. This is something else. This is looking a man in the eyes. A man who speaks your language. A man who asked about your family. And pulling the trigger anyway. He raises the Luger higher. This is it. This is the moment. He's going to pull the trigger. And Thomas Harker moves. Not away. Toward. He springs up from the ground, drives his shoulder into Otto's legs. Otto stumbles backward. The Luger fires. The round goes wide. Hits the wall behind where Harker was lying. Harker doesn't stop moving. He's on Otto. Hand around his wrist. Twisting. The Luger falls. Harker catches it before it hits the ground. Now he has the weapon. 31 Germans still have rifles. But they're scattered across the barn. Separated. No clear shot without hitting their own men. Harker fires. 3 rounds. Center mass. Otto falls. Harker pivots. Fires again. The nearest German drops. Then the next. Then the next. The Luger holds 8 rounds. He empties it in 4 seconds. 5 Germans dead. 6 counting Otto. He drops the Luger, grabs Otto's rifle, a Karabiner 98K. 5 rounds in the magazine. He fires all 5. 5 more Germans fall. Now he's out of ammunition. But there are rifles on the ground, dropped by the dead. He grabs one, fires, grabs another, fires. The barn is chaos. Germans are shooting back. Rounds are hitting the walls, the floor, the ceiling. But they're panicking, shooting wild, hitting each other as often as they're hitting at Harker. Harker stays low, moves constantly, grabs weapons from corpses, fires until empty, drops them, grabs another. He's not aiming carefully anymore, just pointing and pulling triggers. The barn is small. The Germans are packed together. Every shot hits something. His hand breaks when a rifle stock shatters under the impact of a round. 3 fingers, compound fractures. He doesn't notice until later. His shoulder takes a glancing hit from a ricochet, wood splinter lodging in his back. 17 of them. He doesn't notice that either. He notices when he runs out of rifles to grab. When he's standing in the center of the barn surrounded by bodies, and the only sound is ringing in his ears. 25 Germans dead, 7 wounded. They're the ones who dove for cover. The ones who stayed down. The ones who survived. Harker stands there, covered in blood, surrounded by corpses, still holding an empty rifle. One of the surviving Germans is crying. Another is praying. Another is staring at Harker like he's something supernatural, something impossible. Harker drops the empty rifle, sits down, his legs give out, adrenaline crash. Realizes his hand is broken, realizes he's been shot, realizes what he just did. 25 men. He killed 25 men in less than a minute. Used their own weapons. Started with Otto's Luger. Worked his way through the barn. Grabbed rifles from the dead. Kept firing until there was nothing left to shoot. He sits there for 10 minutes. Then 20. Waiting for his heart to stop hammering. Waiting for the adrenaline to wear off. Waiting to feel something other than numb. The surviving Germans don't move. Don't try to escape. Don't try to pick up weapons. They just sit there. Traumatized. Broken. Staring at the American who killed their friends. Who killed Otto. Who moved like death itself. Eventually, Harker stands up. Walks to the door. Opens it. Shouts for help. His voice is hoarse. Raw from screaming. From breathing hard. From whatever sound he was making during the fight. He doesn't remember making any sound. But his throat hurts. His platoon is gone, but there are other units in the area. Someone hears him. American voices. Running footsteps. Soldiers appear. Rifles ready. They see Harker. See the blood. See the bodies through the open door. One of them asks what happened. Harker doesn't answer. Just points inside. Medics arrive. Take the wounded Germans. Take Harker. Someone documents the scene. Takes photographs. Counts the bodies. 25. All shot with their own weapons. Someone finds Otto's body. Finds his SS identification. Finds his letters. Letters he never sent. Letters to his family. Letters that say he's tired. That he wants to come home. That he's sorry for everything. Letters that will never be delivered. Captain Weiss finishes writing. Closes his notebook. Looks at Harker. You killed 25 men in approximately 55 seconds, using their own weapons. While having a conversation with them, Harker nods. Why were you still talking? After he decided to execute you, why not stay silent? Harker considers the question. Takes his time, finally answers. Because silence meant death. Talking meant time. Even 5 more seconds of time meant 5 more seconds to find an opening. You were buying time. I was buying time. Weiss stands, extends his hand. You're being recommended for the Distinguished Service Cross, maybe the Medal of Honor. Division wants to turn this into a morale story. American sergeant defeats 32 Germans through quick thinking and combat skill. Harker doesn't shake his hand. Just asks when he can return to his unit. 6 weeks minimum. Your hand needs surgery. Shoulder needs to heal. You're done fighting. I'm done fighting, Harker repeats. Not a question, a statement. Weiss leaves. Harker sits alone in the hospital tent, stares at his bandaged hand, thinks about Otto, about the conversation, about the moment when everything changed, about the choice Otto made, about the choice he made in response. He doesn't feel like a hero, doesn't feel like he won anything, just feels tired, empty, like something inside him broke along with his fingers. The war ends 3 months later. Germany surrenders. The camps are liberated. The full horror is revealed. Thomas Harker receives the Distinguished Service Cross, second highest military decoration. The citation mentions courage and tactical brilliance and extraordinary heroism. It doesn't mention that he talked to the Germans for 20 minutes before he killed them, that he asked about their families, that he learned one of their names. Doesn't mention that he still thinks about Otto sometimes, about the farm outside Munich, about the sister who was 12 the last time her brother saw her, about the letters that never got delivered. Harker returns to Bozeman after the war, works at a lumber mill, marries a woman named Ruth, has 3 children, never tells them about the barn, never talks about the war. When people ask about his medals, he says he was lucky. His children find the medals after he dies, find the citation, read about their father defeating 32 Germans in combat. They're amazed. Ask their mother if she knew. Ruth says she knew something happened, something her husband never wanted to talk about, something that changed him, made him quiet, made him careful with his words, made him think before he spoke. She never pushed, never demanded to know, just accepted that some things were too heavy to share. The funeral is small. Family, friends, veterans from the American Legion post, a few men from his old unit who survived the war, who stayed in touch, who remembered. One of them gives a speech, talks about Harker's courage, his coolness under fire, his ability to think when everyone else was panicking. Says the 157th Infantry lost a lot of good men, but Tom Harker made it through, made it home, made a life. That meant something. After the funeral, a man approaches Ruth, says he was there. In France, says he was one of the medics who responded when Harker called for help. Says he saw the barn, saw the bodies, saw what one man did against impossible odds. Says he needs to tell her something. Something important. Ruth listens. The medic talks. Says when they found Harker, he was sitting in the barn crying. Not from pain, not from fear, just sitting there, surrounded by dead Germans crying. The medic asked what was wrong. Harker said he'd learned one of their names, said he'd talked to him, said the man had a family, a farm, a sister, said he didn't want to kill him, said he had to, said there was no other choice, but said he'd learned his name, and that made it different somehow, made it real. The medic says he thinks about that sometimes. About Harker crying in that barn, about what it means to have to kill someone whose name you know, someone you talked to, someone who became a person instead of just an enemy. Says he wanted Ruth to know that. Wanted her to know her husband wasn't just a warrior, was human, stayed human, even when the situation demanded otherwise. Ruth thanks him. Says that sounds like Tom. Says he never lost his humanity, never stopped thinking about the cost of things, never stopped caring. Says that's who he was, a man who survived by thinking, who killed by necessity, who carried the weight of it quietly, who refused to turn his survival into a story, who just wanted to go home, be normal, build something instead of destroying it. The medic nods. Says that's rare. Says most men who did what Harker did either broke or bragged, either couldn't live with it or couldn't stop talking about it. Says Harker did neither, just lived, quietly, carefully, carried his dead without complaining, without asking for recognition, without turning his trauma into currency. Says that's the real heroism, not the barn, not the Distinguished Service Cross, not the impossible odds, Just the quiet decision to keep living, to keep being human, to keep caring about people even after doing something like that. Ruth agrees, says that was Tom, says she loved him for it, says she wishes he'd talked more, shared more, let her carry some of the weight, but understands why he didn't. Some things are too heavy to share. Some things you carry alone. What happened in that barn outside Dieu's wasn't heroism, wasn't courage, wasn't tactical brilliance. It was survival. Thomas Harker talked because talking was the only weapon he had left. He asked questions because questions bought time. He stayed calm because panic meant death. He learned Otto's name because that's what humans do. They connect. They relate. They try to find common ground even with enemies. And when the moment came, when Otto pulled the trigger, Harker did what thousands of soldiers did in thousands of desperate moments across 6 years of war. He refused to accept the mathematics that said he was already dead. But unlike most survivors, Harker never forgot that the Germans were human too, that Otto had a family, a farm, a sister, that the 25 men he killed in that barn were sons and brothers and fathers, that they had names, lives, futures that ended because of him, that survival has a cost. And sometimes the cost is carrying the names of the people you killed for the rest of your life. Thomas Harker carried those names until the day he died, 25 of them. He never spoke them out loud, but he never forgot them either.